Good evening, Saints of St. James. It's about 11:35, usual time I usually get around to doing one of these. I want to talk to you briefly about the worship services and our church situation. I think we've hit a momentary glitch, but it's just momentary. But before I do, I want to talk to you about the anxious times we're living in right now. You know, the anxiety that we feel about this pandemic, man, there are opinions, as you know, all over the place on this. And now we have added to that the racial tensions, and there are views and opinions that are being expressed all over the place on that too. And the fact of how we do worship, when we do worship, and, you know, openness, closeness, and all that sort of thing, and all kind of opinions on that as well. And a whole variety of other issues that, you know, just ordinary life brings. I know we're struggling with my father-in-law in the nursing home, and all the things that are really painful about that. And everybody else has issues, aging issues. We all struggle with those things. Lots and lots of anxiety. And it is so easy to get consumed into these national anxieties as well. Things that are affecting us that we really have no control over. You know, we just kind of follow the track of whoever we believe we follow the most, right? I mean, there are those we believe that have our best interest in mind, and then others don't believe that. Well, you know, I'm not going to try to convince anybody because it doesn't do any good. But I tell you what, I've noticed that I just about want to go run into a cave and hide somewhere because I want to scream. I'm so sick of it all. And I'm sick of all the disagreements and all the different opinions being espoused. Nothing we can do about it. It's going to be there, but that's creating so much anxiety. So I just want to suggest find something to do, something that brings joy to you. I would say get a dog if you don't have one, because that works for me. You know, just whatever, something that will take your mind off of these things that we're so anxious about, rather than jumping in the middle and paddling all around them. I'm really going to try to do that during this next week of my vacation, because I wasn't very successful this first part of my vacation. In fact, vacation for me is supposed to be kind of separation from church, right? Not this week, it wasn't. There were at least 4 or 5 days that I was either talking to someone about church worship, or the bishop in emails, or personal conversations many times about what was going on and what decisions were being made and how we fit into it all. So there was just, I didn't get a chance to get away from much of that. My family's here, they're leaving tomorrow, so I guess I'll have a chance to kind of regroup after that. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about kind of how this week went. First of all, on Wednesday, the bishop contacted me on a personal email and said, "How are you doing at St. James? I'm really concerned and thinking we may need to pull back on having indoor worship, and I want to know what your thoughts are about that." And I said, "Bishop, nobody is doing it any safer than we are in the whole diocese. I really believe that." And I knew for a fact that he had already shut down Athens, St. Matthias in Athens, and was thinking considerably hard about shutting down Kaufman. But the response I got back was, "Carry on. You're okay to go." And so that was the presumption I was working on, until I got a call Friday from one of our parishioners who has been attending worship regularly since we've opened, who told me that they were at a meeting, a community meeting recently, and before the last week's Sunday service, and not practicing social distancing, not wearing masks, sitting in a small group in a circle, and sitting right next to a person who 2 days later developed a fever and was tested positive for the coronavirus. Well, obviously that creates some issues that we have to address because this person has come to church. Now, one of the reasons we wear masks in church, everybody, is so that if someone does come in and happens to be infected, the chances of them infecting anyone else are pretty slim. Still, we want to be as safe as we can when we find out someone might actually be infected. But in order to be tested, you really have to wait 14 days after the event to see if you come down with any symptoms. If you don't, it may mean that you're not infected. If you do, then maybe you get tested and find out you are infected. But even if you aren't, in our case, it's very important to know if you are an asymptomatic carrier. So this person will be tested after a 14-day period, and then we'll have to wait another week or so to see if indeed they were not infected. Either way, we'll figure out a way to go forward with this. But it's important to know because they may have been around various people. There's a ripple effect here, see? Anybody that they've been around, and they might need to be tested as well. Just because you don't have symptoms doesn't mean that you're not a carrier at that point. We want to be very, very careful. And this was actually, before this happened, I sent out an email to Paul and Mike telling them that I have been super anal about all the protocol, as you all know, and that I wanted them in my absence to be just as anal as I had been, because that's the way we stay open. And that's the way the bishop trusts us. So I kind of made a crass comment to them. I said, we'll all be known as the three tight asses. And we probably hadn't heard that said of any of us since our college days. But, be that as it may, when something like this happens, we have to step back and take a look at it. So we did not have services Sunday for that reason. And then I contacted the bishop on Sunday night and said, here's the situation, here's what we're waiting for. When this is all done, may we go back to our services as usual? And he said, no, I'm afraid because of the spike in all of Texas really, but in our area in particular, all the churches in the diocese were going to not be able to do in-church worship anymore. So regardless of what happens. Now that was Sunday. Well, Monday he was going to send out a memo to the clergy, and he did. He sent out one Monday afternoon, and it said something a little bit different. It said he wants all the churches to pull back from C phase to B phase. Well, if you'll remember, B phase is we can have no more than 10 at a time at worship, and I'm one of the 10. So that means 9 people at each worship service with me. We have to do that for a while. How long, I don't know, until this spike begins to level out. If you've been keeping up with, I have friends down in Houston and Austin and San Marcos and places telling me that it's really, really bad in terms of hospitals filling up in their ICUs. So that said, we're kind of waiting to see where that goes. So when I talked to him about that, he asking more about the person who may or may not be infected, because I had to call the bishop about the protocol regarding that. And the thing that I guess it just jumps out at me is this is a lesson, a real lesson to us, especially if we're going to be coming to church regularly, is to wear your mask when you're in a situation like that and practice distancing. Because this just goes to show, if you sit next to somebody and they have no symptoms, but a couple of days later they do and they test positive, you may be infected. And that's not just about you. It has a ripple effect of everyone you've been in touch with and everyone you know that you've been in touch with and who they get in touch with. And if you do happen to come up positive, it's a huge ripple effect. And we want to avoid that if at all possible. It may not be avoidable at all times. Sometimes there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to get the virus. It happens. But we can do, at least take those precautions, I hope. That's a lesson that we'll all heed. So, let me see here. After this, let me just say this. I have another week of vacation coming, and last week was kind of interrupted a few times with this sort of church stuff. So I'm hoping to get a whole week of vacation, my next week vacation, without any interruptions, and just to have time to kind of relax and unplug. So you'll have worship just like last week at home. There won't be any drive-by this Sunday, and I will actually send you the entire service that I sent the lay readers who were going to lead the service last week. So you'll have the entire morning prayer service and the spiritual communion part at the end. There won't be any hymns. The bishop's sermon will be attached as a link, and you can watch that. Again, the sound is not very good. It's a little bit louder than last week's. So if it's not loud enough for you, I'm also sending a very shorter reflection, not a sermon really, on the 4th of July. And it's really based on some readings from people like Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., let's see, who was the other one? John Adams' wife, Abigail Adams. Really interesting kind of stuff from the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, that sort of thing, and ending with the gospel. And I think it'll be kind of a good way to kind of celebrate the 4th of July and give you some reflections at least. So that'll be sent to you for that reason. No full sermon, because I got to work to do that, and I'm trying not to do that. So after this coming Sunday, we will get back into the routine of worshiping again in groups of 10 or less at each service. And I will send out the things that we need to send out and give you a chance to respond to that. But we won't be doing that until after Sunday, okay? But that is coming, unless we get word from the bishop that things have changed, either gotten worse or better, and he changes his protocol. But I never know. But I don't think it will be that quick. So we'll get back into business then, and we'll be looking at some other options down the road. I won't have another vestry meeting until that next week, the week after this Sunday, and we will discuss some options for maybe outdoor services and things like that, and how we might be able to do those during the summer in a comfortable way, and maybe in the fall too. Because I have a feeling this is going to be kind of a back and forward thing according to how these things spike. And if it does, we have to look at some alternatives on how to deal with this to be able to worship together in ways other than just inside. So those will be some of the things we'll be looking at. The other thing the bishop told me, he said, yes, you can worship 10 or less. You can continue to do that inside, but more carefully. And I said, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how we can do it more carefully than we're doing. But I do have some ideas. I mean, I think we're going to have to cut back on some things like that I do. And I'm going to take my mask off. It's going to be behind the altar, a little bit more distancing. And I will be reading the lesson again. We will shorten the services because we'll have more services. We may only use the gospel reading. We may use the confession tied into the prayers of the people. We won't have a Eucharistic prayer. We'll use the reserved sacrament. So we'll shorten these services a little bit. Again, to give us a little more visiting time, but we may also have 3, 4, 5 services, I don't know, so that'll be necessary to do. And I will do my best to keep my sermons much briefer for my own sake, so that I don't have to, blow all that hot air out 4 or 5 times in a row and run out of gas. So let me see what else I have to say here. One more week of vacation. Nothing really to address other than what I've just said. Just to reiterate the thing about anxiety, if you feel you're getting caught up into all the stuff that's around you in the culture, let it go. Let God have it. Turn it over to God. You can't do anything about it. Your input and your disagreements and agreements are just creating more anxiety in yourself and others. So try to let that stuff go for a while. And read your Bible, pray more, watch a movie, pet your dog, go outside and take a walk, sit under the trees and smell the flowers, sniff the roses, all that kind of stuff. Relieve yourself of the anxiety as much as you can. And there's plenty of time to get involved in all that other stuff. Try not to think about the COVID virus 24/7. Or the racial stuff and all that stuff. It's going to be there long after we kind of get ourselves recentered. So that's my advice. No service this Sunday on July 4th weekend, but we will have service beginning again the following weekend. That's what I want you to know. So have a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Be careful of those fireworks. Keep your dogs in. My dog hates those fireworks, so we're going to try to stay away from them. But for those of you who like to watch them, might be a great opportunity to go outside. But please, please consider safe distancing and wearing your mask. Just avoid it. It's not going to hurt anything. I love you guys, and I really hope that what I'm saying is in your best interest. I hope you take it that way. You know, we're here for each other. It's important. It's so important that we know we're here for each other. And when we do have an opportunity to worship, that's important to each of us to come together. It's the more we come together, the more we build one another up and we encourage one another. The separation is difficult on us all. It's not like it used to be. I get that. I hate that too. Maybe it will be one day again. I really pray it will soon. But we don't know. We don't know when. So we do the best we can day by day as we can. Take it a day at a time. That's the way to relieve your anxiety. The Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I say that more and more these days. Again, the Lord bless you and keep you free and relieve your anxiety, keep you free from undue stress. And until I see you again, God's peace be with you. Love you.